Why did you start this?
Well, we had some significant events, I would say horrific events happening centered around violence in the city of Newburgh. And, just hearing the outcry from the community, looking at mothers and their, faces when these guns ring out. And this is something that's been in Newburgh and plaguing Newburgh for decades, and it's nothing new under the sun. It's just a different complexion, when you look at different people being victims of violent crimes, shootings, stabbings, and so on. So I just, was wondering how and what remedy could address the violent crimes in the city of Newburgh. We know that Newburgh has had the highest crime rate in the entire New York State per capita based on our small population and demographics. We know that Newburgh is not quite 4 square miles. We have roughly 30,000 residents in our city, according to the U.S. Census and Report. And, the number of murders and the number of violent crimes that happen in our city are just terrible. When Omani Free and Tabitha Cruz were killed at the Halloween event, that was something that happened after I made the call for 100 men to shoulder up, but it confirmed that this organization not only needs to exist, but so too does other organizations need to coexist in whatever efforts we can do to get young people to put down the guns and to think about alternative choices to violent crimes and a life of crimes. So May 8th, 2016, I had made a call on social media. I did a small video, did some postings, and, I had roughly 55 men show up at City Hall to that call. And it happened to be a Mother's Day, because Mother's Day last year came early. I'm used to Mother's Day being the second week or the third week of May, but because May 1st was on a Sunday, Mother's Day was the second Sunday. And there were some people that complained. I got a lot of phone calls and emails from women, particularly like, why would you call for 100 men to shoulder up on Mother's Day? And my response was, well, it's in respect to the mothers that are suffering from the loss of life of their own children, particularly African American and Latino men, young and young boys, whose mothers are in bereavement about, or grieving over their children's loss. So I sort of spent it that way, and some of the men, even though they showed up, they were like, man, our wives are holding the clock watching, it's like, so they were playing, and I said mine too. I didn't realize it, and I apologize, but about roughly 50 to 55 men showed up, and we started brainstorming. We started talking about the prospects of what this 100 men for Newburgh would look like. And one of my former students, he got into the apprentice program after taking the test successfully, and he's now working on the Tappan Zee Bridge, and he was working 2 night jobs in 2 different grocery stores. Married young man, I think 26, 27-year-old, Irshad Muhammad. And Irshad was my student back in 2002 at the Creative Academy. And he said to me, Mr. Harvey, he said, I'm working 2 jobs, man. I have a wife and 4 kids. He said, and, I'm not happy. He said, what are we going to do to give young men alternative opportunities to turn away from a life of crime and find meaningful employment? He said, my father has been in prison all my life. I've seen him a few times. He said, but he's been in prison since I was a little boy. And he said my mom raised us, and I think he said he was one of 7 or 9 children. And he said, I smoked marijuana at 7. And he told us, all of us, that in that first meeting. We were like, whoa. And he was one of my students. I knew he'd come from a difficult background, but I never knew as to what extent. And he said, I smoked my first marijuana cigarette, my first experience with weed at 7. And I had him in 9th grade, Global History and Geography at Creative Academy, and he was probably about 14 years old at that time.
And so he was, and you told him about this internship program?
Told him about the apprentice program with Local 17, Todd Dior. He went out there, took the test. He got into the apprentice program. He's now currently working on the Tappan Zee Bridge. And he told me, he said, Mr. Harvey, I won't be at any more meetings because I've gotten a job, a stable, meaningful employment, and I'm going to be relocating to live in Westchester. And so he and his family moved, and it was like, that was just one of a handful, several things that we've done, and we don't really broadcast and talk, we just do it.